your goal in your content for the year or whatever the case is to keep working on these issues over time based on your highest priority in terms of your keywords that you want to be found for. Hey, welcome to Local SEO Tactics. I just want to start out this episode about a little bit of housekeeping of what's coming up. In the next episode, we're going to cover content marketing, what works for local business. So basically, what's your strategy? We're going to get into that here with a couple of these tools. I think you're going to like this episode. The next episode will kind of blend right into this, and it has a lot to do with advanced GBP strategies. So after that episode, that'll kind of wrap up this series. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go into a great interview with a gentleman by the name of Qasim Islam. And he has a great book called AEO Blueprint. And as we know, a lot of SEO a lot of AEO is really good SEO. However, we're going to get into more detail of what that entails. So there's a shift obviously going on. In the future, I think it was Gary Vaynerchuk said recently, I think in June in one of his podcasts, 24 months from now, SEO in Google will be a lot like what the Yellow Pages was years ago. So those of you that are young that don't know what the Yellow Pages were, it was a directory where you could find businesses or whatnot. So anyway, let's jump into this. It's kind of interesting. So I'm going to use a couple of tools here and try to show you what my approach would be to, if you're either starting from scratch or just not where you want to be in the rankings. And primarily we're going to focus on GBP versus SERPs or natural SEO. So GBP, remember, for most service-based businesses, generate about 70% of the calls, and then the other 30% are going to come off what we call your naturals or your actual website. So what we're going to do here is, this is a really cool tool. It's called Lead Snap. So yeah, Lead Snap, and it's free for like 7 days. So you can experiment with it. And then after that, I believe it's between $20 and $59 a month. So depending on what features you get, it also does automatic citations for you. So it's a pretty cool tool in that sense. There's other tools similar to it. Bright Local has a tool, and Local Dominator is a really good tool. We're going to have the founder of Local Dominator, Elder, on here. He'll be on hopefully in the future. I got to get connected with him, and he's got a great tool, and he's a great guy. So anyway, let's go into this Lead Snap deal. So basically, if we took the term pallet racking, and this is in the market of Richmond, we can see who's dominating, who isn't. So in this case, a lead company is called Stelwin, and you look at it and they absolutely dominate. There's a few minor issues here, but not many. I mean, look at this. It's all ones. There's a few twos and there's a few threes. So they've done a very good job of covering this. And then the next one is this Richmond rack. Not quite as good. And we're going to get to what you would do to make it better. And basically, and then this Coastal Material. So we're just taking the top three. And you can see Coastal Material is doing really good over in here. So anything 3 or less is good. And if you have more reviews than your competition, 3 is all you need. Don't worry about 1 is good. Don't get me wrong. But 3 is all you need in terms of, in that listing, if you have a lot more reviews, people are going to call you regardless what actual position you're in. So, okay, so let's break down our strategy. Once we've discovered who's beating us, okay, then we want to know, let me just see here. Let me pause for a sec. Sorry. Okay, so then we're going to want to know let me get my mug out of the way here. What are they doing? What are their categories within their GBP? Because really, this is going to set the baseline of what we're going to do to our site to rank locally effectively in this GBP. So we're going to go to this tool. It's a pretty cool tool. It's just basically, it's an auditing tool for GMB. So what it'll do is it'll show you, and let's just click on this real quick. Sorry, my internet's a little slow. So it's called GMB Audit for local SEO. GMB Everywhere is actually the name of the product, GMB Everywhere. So pretty cool tool. Their pricing is pretty reasonable. Again, I don't get anything. I'm just telling you the tools that I use. I should start getting something for some of this stuff. But at any rate, it's pretty cool. So you can click on their category finder, and you're going to want to examine each of these, what they're set up for. Now, as we understand this industry, pallet racking can come from a couple directions. It can come from forklift dealers that sell forklifts, and then it can be people that purely just do pallet racking. That's all they do. So depending on how these guys are set up, they're set up more as an industrial equipment supplier. So what they're trying to do is not only rank for pallet racking, but they're trying to rank also for forklifts, for perhaps, and some other stuff. So that's why their approach is this way. If we take a look at Richmond Rack, they're going to be categorized a little differently here. You're going to see warehouses, and then these are the related categories. And then you can get into their services. And that's going to become more important as we go into our next episode here in 11 on more of that advanced strategy, if you will. So we'll just do the last one here, which is coastal. And I think they're going to be more of that industrial equipment. So their number one category is industrial equipment. And then you can see Richmond Rack was more of warehouse, like warehouse storage, warehouse equipment. So a slightly different deal. And then the related categories. And again, that comes in, or their subcategories. These are their secondary ones. You can have up to 10. But what this does is it gives you their actual, I believe this gives you their actual categories. So let me just pause this here for a second. Okay, so in your GBP, you can only have 10 categories. So you have to decide which one of these 10 is more relevant for you, right? So if you are not selling welding supplies, then there's no reason for you to have that category. So you're going to have to pick the top 10 out of these, and then subsequent services, you can kind of see what these guys do with their related services. And that becomes part of the strategy we're going to talk about here. So basically, this tool, you can look at the different, you can type in different keywords. So in this case, I did used pallet racking, for instance. Richmond Rack, is more of the top player here for used pallet racking. And then you can see some of these are wanting, but still good, right? So depending on where you are, you enter your information in this, and then it tells you where you're going to rank or whatever. Let me just pause one second. So again, this term is material handling. So that's a little different. That's a broader term, right? It's probably more popular in search volume, but the strategy is such that now this company is on top, right? And okay, so let's get back to content and what we're talking about here. So what I would do with this particular company is I would go after 4 and 5, right? And any 4, 5, 6, I would write articles on, basically I would write articles on that service, in other words, material handling, and I would rearrange my site to have all the categories match exactly what's on the GBP, and then the services would fall underneath those categories along with a location, a location page. So basically, if we hone in here and we go into this number 5, I would write articles basically on this area, and I would find out this neighborhood or what have you. Well, obviously this is like a wildlife area, so it's not relevant. So I wouldn't worry that much about that, but I would focus on this area, let's say this Yellow Tavern area, and I'd write an article on that on something related to material handling and that area. And that's tricky, but you can do it along with some keyword management to get that to pop. And your goal in your content for the year or whatever the case is to keep working on these issues over time based on your highest priority in terms of your keywords that you want to be found for. So material handling is a great keyword, and it's a very broad, generic keyword. And so it has to fall in line with your strategy. And maybe it's a super competitive one, and that's one you're not going to focus on. Instead, you're going to focus on a specific keyword in an effort to get traffic to your site and activity going. So that's part of my strategy, or what we go for when we work with somebody is, hey, look, the name of the game is to get some revenue going right away. And again, with these guys, if we look at their particular GBP, it's just about going after the 4s and the 5s and what have you. The 4s are going to be easy to convert. It doesn't take much to do that. It's just when you're going to start going after higher number, it might take a little more effort to do that, a little more time. So to do this, to create pages for each of these and supporting articles and blogs and everything that goes with it, probably takes an hour or two per page to create content, edit it, create backlinks to support that as well. So monetarily, time-wise, you're looking at easily an hour to two, and then you have additional costs to create backlinks appropriately. And you may not have to create backlinks for every one of these dots. I'm not saying you have to do that, but you do have to put some good backlinks in there. And we'll get into that in another episode. Actually, you know what? We will jump right into backlinks. So basically, your strategy for backlinks is I would try to work on backlinks that are super effective for local SEO. And one of those is the Chamber of Commerce. And basically, you can join the Chamber of Commerce depending on what you want to do here. And I'll just use this as a reference. So this is Richmond, Virginia. I just picked Richmond out of the blue, but basically you could choose to join the Chamber of Commerce for Greater Richmond. So the way my understanding of the Chamber of Commerce works, and somebody can correct me, but basically from my understanding is you have, let's say, the Greater Richmond Chamber of Commerce, but then within Richmond, you may have a suburb that has their own Chamber of Commerce. And my understanding is, probably the bigger the city, the more expensive it's going to be. And then as you get into the suburbs, in theory, it should be less expensive. So I would, depending on how tight your market is, if you're only servicing, let's say, one suburb of Richmond, and that's really all you have the manpower for, that obviously it doesn't make sense to join other chambers. But you would join that chamber, and then you would get a backlink to your site, and that validates not only with Google, but it also validates with AI as well. So AI is looking for verification, validation, evidence that you are legit. And so the key as we do approach AI is getting out there in different either related publications or blogs, doing guest blogs, and or reaching out to even local podcasters. So the way you could do that is you could go to ChatGPT, just say, hey, I'm in Richmond. I'm looking to be a guest on a local podcast in Richmond for my business. Can you give me any suggestions? And it usually comes back with something. It isn't always perfect, and it doesn't always come back with everything, so to speak. The other way you can do it is go out to podcast studios in every major city now, and you can ask them and say, hey, I'm looking to guest on a podcast. Is there any way do you have a bulletin board of some sort that I can post something on? And I'd love to be a guest, because all these podcasters, including me, I'm always looking for guests that can help my listenership or viewership. And so that's another way of doing that, is to reach out to to that podcast studio, if you will, to see what you can do for guests in that area. Okay, so then my next strategy would be to go after optimizing your website or your SERPs. And so that requires a little different approach. And basically what I would do is look at, and this is generally done through really good blog articles that can help create traffic. So, we've obviously done the on-page optimization and technical SEO, and now we're really looking to add good content to our site. And basically what I would do is you can look at, if you're a particular industry, let's say it's this pallet rack industry, you more than likely are members of industry associations and stuff and magazines. And so I would look at what's trending and try to write articles on those trending, even if you don't believe in it or not. Look, let's say AEO. There's a lot of people out there like, AEO, it's not a thing, and da. Well, it is a thing, and you better get on board with it. And so I need to research that, study that, and bring to you as much information as I can on some of the top AEO from some of the top industry leaders. So if you're in the pallet racking industry, one of those things would be automated storage. So where that industry is going is in let's say an urban area that's super dense in population, storage has to start going vertically because the land is expensive. And so they have these big, huge automated storage devices that are like the size of a bus, but like 40 feet tall. And they carousel the items. So you go up to it and you just type in, I need this, or you can even scan it with a barcode type of the thing, or take your barcode off your item, scan it, and then automatically bring it down or whatever. Not to nerd out, but basically you need to write articles on that and be informative. The idea is to give good, credible information out to Google and the AIs. And so that's part of your strategy, is to see what those trends are. And you can do that also through various searches to see what's trending there. So people also ask, or people are asking for this. You can start researching that and write articles, but try to tie it into your location and have good backlinks to credible people or credible websites that have, let's say, relatively high DR rating, right? So you're trying to write good, authentic articles that are going to help your prospects or help your people that are visiting your site, and then are linked to a credible source. If you can do that, would be one of the key things that I do with SERPs. The other thing I would do, this is going to sound weird, but I would join a Reddit group, and I would join a Reddit subgroup that's in your, let's say, in your city. So if you're a plumber, or if in this case you're in the material handling industry, I would join a Reddit group, and I'd make sure when you join that it correlates with not only your name, obviously, but then your business. So it would be Bob Brennan at Johnson Brothers Material Handling or something. And I would just be in that group when you can and answer questions as best you can. Don't try to promote your business. If somebody asks, obviously, just say, yeah, whatever. But ultimately, the reason you want to do that is AI, again, is going back for verification, validation. They're looking for anything and everything that can reinforce that you are, in fact, an expert. You can do a similar deal probably within a LinkedIn group. You could join a LinkedIn group. If you're not in LinkedIn, you want to do that. Join a group for your industry. That helps as well. So, and what I try to do as a strategy is blogs are created and we create them for our customer's name. We try to make sure they have a LinkedIn account, and that LinkedIn account that, Google can see that. And again, it goes back to EAT, and they're like, okay, these guys are in fact an expert. They're in LinkedIn. They're, let's say, part of the engineering association, whatever the case is. Anything you can do to reinforce or edify what it is you do, that's huge in writing these blogs and in doing this whole process. So joining a Reddit group, answering questions, joining a LinkedIn group, answering questions. Maybe you could do that for Facebook. I don't know that how much weight that carries, but I know AI for now does this as well. Okay, so that's about it. One last tip, if you will, and it's just a budget if you have for Google Ads. So Google Ads, paid ads can be effective. A lot of times it takes a budget of probably at the minimum of $800 or so a month to kind of get off the ground with it. And all that being said, there's got to be ROI for you on there. So the key thing with Google Ads, if you do a Google ad campaign, is the landing page. You can get the clicks if you have the right header up there, the right attractive offer. In other words, leasing starting at X amount a month, that's a good price point. Somebody's like, okay, that's what I need. They click on it. And then your landing page has to reflect that. It can't be like a bait and switch, because people can get to your landing page. They're going to see that, in fact, it doesn't, you can't lease it at that. And then they're not going to fill out the information or call you or whatever the case is. So there's an art to that. At some point in time, we will do a podcast here, I'm guessing about mid-October, on Google paid ads, some strategies and effectiveness there. So I know I jumped all over the place, but again, this really comes back to, I think, for most local businesses as it relates to services, is really that GBP. That's where you get 70% of the pop. And then working on the website itself. I'm not saying you ignore the website. There's a strategy there, and we're going to get into that in the next episode. But it's really about making that GBP pop and everything work there. So I hope this helps. Again, next episode, we'll be talking about advanced GBP strategies. And then the episode after that, we'll have Kasim on. It's going to be great. He's going to talk about an AEO blueprint. He's a great guy, a leader in the industry. I don't know how many 7-figure agencies he's started and then sold. And I'm very excited to have him out here in a couple weeks. Thanks.